Welcome to part 3 of the sewing of the Three Bow Blouse Pattern. You can make one with me by purchasing one of our patterns exclusively on our website. Here are some examples of tops we've made before using this pattern. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what you end up making with your imagination using this pattern. So let's continue. In the last video, we attached both sleeves onto the front bodice and clean finished the front neckline. We also completed pressing and sewing all of our straps. So let's begin this lesson by grabbing all of our straps and attaching them to the back bodices. With my back bodices and straps, I'm going to arrange the straps per color. Refer to the back bodice pattern to see the approximate position of each strap. Each strap will sit in between the notches indicated in the pattern. Make sure that all the arrows are pointing in the same direction. Pin the ends of each strap in place, making sure that it is lined up against the edge and that they sit nicely between the notches. With your sewing machine, run a single stitch to keep the straps in place. Do this to the other side. We are now ready to attach the back facing onto the back bodice. Before pinning, make sure to match all the notches. After pinning both sides, we are going to stitch along the edge of the center back opening to the top of the facing. The seam allowance is 1/2 inch. Always check to make sure that you are not sewing through other layers of the garment. After stitching, the corners will look something like this. Repeat the same step to the other side. To avoid bulk, we are going to clip the corners. Make sure that you are doing this very carefully. Do not clip any of the stitching. With your thumb and pointer, turn the corners inside out. It should look a little something like this. Repeat the same step with the other side. With your iron, press your facings and bodices flat. When you turn it over, you should see a little bit of the front bodice at the edge of the facing. This ensures that the facing won't be visible from the outside of the garment. We are now ready to attach our back pieces to the sleeves. Join the armhole seams together like so. Begin by matching all the notches. Pin in place. Start at one end and then pin the other end. You might remember doing this step earlier when we joined the front bodice with the front sleeve armhole. Line up the edge of the shoulder where the elastic casing is against the fusing seam. Make sure that this part doesn't go past the fusing, and then gradually pin the rest of your armhole seams together. Stitch the armholes very slowly with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Always check to make sure that other layers are not caught while you are sewing. Remember, the armhole seam is a curved line. Stressing or pulling this seam while sewing will cause the seam to bubble. After sewing, take the facing and fold it in towards the bodice to meet the armhole. Once again, you might remember doing this earlier in part 2. Flip it over to the other side so that you can see the initial stitching of the armhole and use this as a guide. Again, pin all the layers in place and stitch them with your sewing machine. After stitching, go ahead and overlock the armhole seams. Your garment should now look like this, and we are ready to clip the corners to turn the facings inside out. Make sure to do this for both sides. And with your thumb and pointer fingers, turn the corners inside out. Do this on both sides and press the seams flat with an iron. So far, our garment is coming along. You and I have been doing such a great job so far. The inside of the garment looks extremely clean finished, and we have a couple more steps to do before we finish this whole sewing project. With a tape measure, go ahead and measure your bicep circumference. Take this measurement and add 2 inches. Mark this measurement on the elastic and cut 2 pieces. With a safety pin attached to the end of the elastic, tunnel it through the sleeve casing. Watch for the other end of the elastic as to not lose it inside the casing. Leave a little elastic out at the end and take a pin to secure it. Upon reaching the other end of the casing, we'll take the safety pin out and secure the other end with a pin as well. Stitch each end with your sewing machine to secure the elastic in place. Join your side seams from the wrong side of the fabrics and pin them in place. We are now ready to sew our side seams. After sewing our side seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, we can go ahead and clip the corners at the armhole. This will help with serging. Make sure not to clip more than a 1/4 inch. Serge both side seams. And here is our side seams. Nice and overlocked and clean. Now we can turn everything inside out. Our garment is coming together, you guys. I am very happy with how the diamonds are lining up, and with my iron, I'm going to press the side seams flat. After pressing the side seams, I will now go ahead and show you how to clean finish the sleeve hem. We will create a baby hem by folding a 1/4 inch of seam allowance towards the wrong side of the fabric 2 times. We will press this down with an iron, pin it, and then stitch it down with our sewing machine. And the result will look something like this. Do this for both sleeves. Alternatively, if you are not a fan of elastics and want a flutter sleeve design, you can just baby hem the sleeve hem and leave it at that. But if you want a puff sleeve, let me show you how to do that. Just as we did the shoulder elastics for the sleeves, we are going to fold in a 1/2 inch seam allowance 2 times at the sleeve hem. With your tape measure, check that you are folding within the 1/2 inch. After folding twice, go ahead and pin in place. Stitch around the sleeve hem, but make sure to leave at least a 2-inch opening for the elastic to go through. With a safety pin, I will then tunnel the elastic through the casing. Remove the safety pin and join each end of the elastic. Measure a 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. Mark it with a pencil. Stitch at the mark and run a back stitch several times to secure the elastic. It will now look like this. You will then open up the elastic and move all the seam allowances to one side. Stitch it through, doing a reverse stitch a couple of times. Our elastic is now secure and looks something like this. Always take caution and be careful when stitching this close. Slip the elastic back through the casing because now we will need to close off the opening. Pin the opening and make sure not to catch any of the elastic. You are going to need to stretch the fabric and elastic out as you are stitching this opening close. And this is what the sleeve looks like for this design option. We are now near the end of the sewing portion of the 3 bow blouse. We just need to hem the bodice. Begin by referencing your paper pattern. The hemline indicates to fold it 2 times using a 3/4 allowance. With an iron and the facing open, you will then measure 3/4 and fold it 1 time, then press. Do this across the hemline. Do this a 2nd time. Remember to use a tape measure to make sure that you have a consistent hemline. Pin the hemline in place, and with your sewing machine, stitch it down. The facings at either end will still remain open at this point. All right, we've now stitched our hem, but this part right here is still open. So make sure that you're not exposing that facing in by having an additional allowance towards the inside of the facing. And this is open right here. We're just gonna fold it in, line it up. And you can do hand stitching to keep this in place or just run a stitch down here. Optionally, what you could also do is stitch down this whole facing. It will kind of be like a style line almost, and that helps when you're washing the garment so you don't have to worry about it moving. That's something to consider. If that is something that you're okay with, to see that stitch line, go ahead and stitch it down. But in our purpose, I really want to make this look very, very clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave the stitch out, but I will need to stitch this down. So you can either, like I said, stitch the bottom by hand, or you can run like a little stitch line down below. After stitching down my facing, I will go ahead and inspect the whole garment. I will clip all loose threads. Be careful when you're doing this to make sure you don't accidentally snip off any of the fabric. I will also give my garment one last press with the iron to make sure it looks extra professional. I also went ahead and pre-tied the bows on the back, because this can be very difficult if you live alone, don't have anybody else to tie the bows for you. If you also want the bow to be more permanent, you can also, after tying up your bow, you can actually go ahead and run a needle through here and stitch it down so it's permanent and you don't have to worry about it ever again. The top can be worn over your head. You can slip it through your head, and it is not that difficult to do. The fit allows you to do that. And also, if you want just a little bit more loose of a garment, you don't have to tie the bows this tight together. I am so excited that this garment is finally complete. I do love the sleeve option, but you have other options to choose from. Which sleeve style are you going to make? Oh my God, that was awesome. I hope you had as much fun as I did. There is nothing more satisfying than having a vision in your mind, picking the fabric, cutting it up, making it, and now you have a garment that you made. Get ready, because you will get a lot of compliments. And please do not forget to share your creations with me. Please go ahead and tag me when you make a garment. I am so excited to see your projects, and I hope that you will have a lot of wear on this garment. I also am planning on making other blouses using this pattern, and I cannot wait to show you how you can manipulate this pattern and make them into so many different things, including a long sleeve version, also including a dress version. So if you're interested in seeing all the different projects that I make and how I create the silhouettes that we sell on our website, go ahead, like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of the style and how would you make it better, or what fabrics would you choose to put together in order to utilize this pattern. Comment down below. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you on the next one.